It's actually not about being 100% anything because that's so unsustainable. What I realize is you have to have a little bit of that ish in your life. The more you can set yourself up for those opportunities to go imperfectly, I think the better you are.
How many grams of protein per servings should we be aiming for to support our minds and bodies throughout the day?
Typically, if you can kind of try to aim around per meal, it is going to get you there. And so many women are having probably like, there's actually a third person that you can try to attain to be. It doesn't have to be the one who fails or the one who goes back to normal behavior. It could be the one who figures it out and gets shit done.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. I have a nutrition guest on with me today, Lacey Baier. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We have an awesome nutrition-based podcast for you guys today, and not like you think. Well, if you've been listening to the podcast, similar to what you think. It's not going to involve crash dieting. It's not going to involve you being hungry, but it is going to involve you having a plan. This is the thing. I feel like we can talk so much about nutrition when it comes to don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But then it's like, all right, well, now I'm just kind of giving up because I don't have a plan. And I've gotten so many don'ts that I'm just going to go eat whatever in the fridge and try my best from there. So, Lacey, I'm super excited for you to kind of clear this up with my audience. We're going to dive into nutrition and get everyone a plan to moving forward into their kind of spring reset.
Awesome. Sounds good. Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, right. So I want to kind of dive into your background. So you have lost a significant amount of weight. Your health journey has been, one you have learned from. So you once said that you prided yourself in eating as little as possible. What did that actually do to your body, your energy, and your relationship with food?
Man, it was forever ago, but I remember very clearly I started tracking my calories. It was just calories back then. Nobody really understood macros. And I would start tracking it at, I think I started at like 1,400 calories in a day. And then I realized I would get to that. And then I felt like that was too much. So no. Then I actually had to keep cutting it back. And if I hit the number that I was trying to hit, just completely opposite of how I do it today. But if I hit the number I was trying to be under, I was mad at myself. So I kept pushing it further and further. And I think I got down to like around 1,100 calories. And I was, and the hunger and the feeling of like that I was so hungry was like, okay, good, I'm doing the right thing now. And it and um and it sounds so crazy to say now because I live a completely different way, but it just kept spiraling more and more that there was never enough to keep. I had to keep cutting more in order to make more progress. But I wound up being so, I lost all my muscle. I had no energy. I was terrified of food. And I just really had no real enjoyment in life at that time. But I was losing weight, so it was like worth it at the time, which is it's crazy.
It's crazy how we put so much emphasis on that, even though we are miserable in so many other aspects of our life. But if we're achieving this one, this one thing that has been a societal focus, it becomes
Yeah.
an internal focus. If we're achieving this one thing, we almost ignore the fact that we are so unhappy in so many other aspects of our life, and it's damaging our relationship moving forward. And I think
Yeah.
that sometimes when we go through these like major like weight loss or reducing like body fat, so many of us forget how miserable we were during that time. When we look back at
Yeah.
pictures and you say like, oh, I was just doing it right, I was so happy. And it's like,
Well,
if we could
I
take
know
an
that
honest look at this.
totally. And after I had lost that weight, I lost about 80 pounds through that process over the course of about a year and getting ready for my wedding, actually. And then when I got pregnant a few years later and I started to gain the weight back, I was terrified because I was like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go through that whole process. It was exhausting. And I think it was close enough in time where I remembered how horrible it was. And I don't know, I just really didn't want to go through it again. So I was trying to find other ways to lose the weight. But it's awful.
And when you were exploring some other ways to lose the weight, what did you find?
So, at that time, I realized clean eating was kind of an option that I had never really paid attention to the types of foods I was eating. So I really started to lose interest in more processed foods and started focusing on whole foods and eating well balanced meals. I still at that point didn't understand the importance of protein or really even macronutrients really at that time. This was like years ago, so it sounds crazy 'cause it's like it runs life right now. But at the time, it was just okay. Well, now maybe I need to have more veggies and meat with my food and have it be more of a substantial meal rather than just trying to cut, cut, cut.
You know what I find so equally as infuriating but also surprising is that the like calories in versus calories out mantra has been able to withstand the test of time like no other. And I'm like, how are we? Because like macronutrients, obviously everyone who has heard of it or like has a basic understanding of how your body functions can get down with that, right? Like you understand the fact that our body processes food differently, our metabolism is different towards different foods, how quickly, how much energy it costs to break down the food. But like that's all kind of that moves into the like scientific side of things where like it's really easy in the health and fitness industry to be like, well, just calories in versus calories out, regardless of the fact that like that doesn't actually work. And your general estimate for what that actually even looks like is wildly inaccurate. So
Yeah.
not only does it not work from a body systems perspective, but it also doesn't work from like a basic math equation, but still it's here.
Yeah.
2026. It has
Yeah.
persevered. Like
I think
why?
because there's some truth in that eating at a calorie deficit, allows you to lose body fat or weight in general. And so I don't, there's so many more variables that don't get taken into account. Like how much muscle are you building? And does that need energy? Are you working out? Do you need to fuel yourself to do that? Like I've recently taken up running and it's like you get to take sugar out on the road with you when you're running because you need to fuel yourself and it's fantastic, but that's not like the whole calories in versus calories out doesn't really I think because it's so much easier to think of weight loss in that way where you just eat less and then you lose the weight. But I think the more one thinks about how you can do more with more, it like you're saying, it kind of breaks that whole foundation.
For sure. And I know, so this is like a hot topic for me when it comes to women who are in perimenopause, menopause. Like they have specifically grown up with a hard emphasis on being in a calorie deficit. And they really don't know how much that works against you when you get into this phase of your life
Yeah.
and how our optimal time for building muscle is, we've passed it as far as like optimal time, but including the amounts of protein, the proper amounts of protein is not actually possible when we're looking at severely reducing calories and we're not looking at upping the protein. So, you have a spring reset for women in midlife that you kind of talk about. What do you mean by this and why do we need one?
Well, like you're saying, so many women who are going through perimenopause and gaining weight or having not budge if they're trying to lose weight, they think that they need to just keep cutting out their food. And so they eat less and less, like you were saying. And the more they do that, the less energy they have and the more miserable they are, and they start gaining weight still. And so it's like completely counterintuitive, frustrating, and and then you go to the doctor and the doctor sounds like a song. And the doctor says, oh, welcome to perimenopause. And so everybody thinks that this is this normal thing that you're supposed to be gaining weight. But what actually happened for people in their 20s, where you could actually eat less and lose weight, no longer happens in perimenopause. It actually happens the opposite way. So what you need to do is you actually need to start eating more protein, strength training to build that muscle. And that is really the key for women who are in perimenopause, because if they don't do that, you're just fighting a losing battle and you have less and less ability to lose the weight or to get in a healthy state, especially before you become older.
Yeah, it's like this everything that you thought worked or had worked in the past, like it doesn't work anymore. And like we gaslight women in such a way when they're in this stage of their life where we're like, well, you must just be crazy. You must be lying about it. Instead
Yeah.
of like, no, that's true. What worked is no longer working. And you're like beating your head against the wall trying to do the same thing. Now, does this apply for women who are in menopause? We talked about perimenopause who are more in their, who have hit that menopause state.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just gets harder and harder, at that point, that it becomes even more valuable. And you don't need, the older you get, the less total calories you need because you're not typically having as much energy output. But at the same time, it's just the and I know everybody's saying protein, 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 but the more protein one eats, and in terms of wanting to get to the point of what your body actually needs, which is a whole other issue because we all have different needs. But the more protein you can have, and then doing the strength training in order to utilize that protein to build the muscle, which will improve your metabolism and literally burn calories for you while you're just sitting still, that's really the name of the game.
Oh, 100%. I mean, this, this becomes like such a difficult conversation because you just mentioned, you typically like your energy expenditure is usually less like as we age. But if
Hmm.
you want to maintain your energy into your later years, you need to be able to fuel your body appropriately to maintain that energy. And I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about like the grandparents I have two children, and the grandparents that are in my life are incredible. They're amazing, and their level of energy is something that I am, like, thankful for every day, but
Yeah.
we've had to really have these discussions about, like, my son's 1. If anyone's ever chased a one-year-old,
Yeah.
he's walking and it's a whole vibe. He's
Yeah.
fast and he's 14 months, so he's a waddler, but
Yeah,
he
okay.
is getting fast and it's just like a constant. And if you wanna be able to pick him up and you want to be able to chase him around there, take him to the playground, comfortably take your grandkids to the playground with the ability to know you can pick them up, you can
Yeah.
catch them. These are life goals that I know you guys want. Like, I know that this is something that is on your life goal, more important than being thin, more important than weight loss, more important than all of those things is like being present for your family and having that energy. And the prescription to do that is not giving yourself the least amount of energy as possible.
Yeah, absolutely, and I totally agree, and I think that so many of us women in perimenopause and a little bit later grew up in the 90s and thought, "Okay, the goal is to be skinny and thin," and now we're getting to this age where we aren't really like, maybe some of us have achieved that, but at the same time, there's this whole other side of that hill, like you're talking about. It doesn't even matter about weight loss anymore. It matters about general muscle functioning. Are you capable of maintaining any strength while you get older? And so, I mean, I'm starting to eye that myself, and it's crazy to start thinking about, okay, what I'm doing now. It's actually not just about feeling good and looking good anymore. It's about, okay, am I going to be able to hold grocery bags coming in 30 years, because it all matters
100%.
now. And we're running out of the time to be able, and it sounds kind of fatalistic, but we are running out of the time to build those muscles in order to be able to do that because it's just going to get harder and harder.
Absolutely. Now we kind of touched on what an important role protein has in
Yeah.
building those muscles. And I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. So when you point out that women drastically undereating protein without even realizing it, I 100% agree. But why is specifically prioritizing protein in the menopausal stage of life? Why is that the kind of gold star here?
Well, because protein is it's easy to eat carbs and fats. Those are so easy to consume. But protein helps you build muscle, it helps you recover, it helps you stay full. It helps um basically keep you it while fat and carbs help also, it contributes to hormonal regulation. There's so many pieces that protein is a major contributor for with the amino acids as it breaks down. That it's not just about building muscle. While that's really important, it is such a valuable macronutrient that so many, I think also women have avoided as well because you never hear about a meat and potatoes kind of woman, right? It's always
It's
like that
so
male thing.
true.
So And I
'Cause
remember
they've
growing up.
co-opted everything, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. They started with like it's strength training and all of that stuff. So I mean, they had it right for a lot of the stuff. I mean, we also did too. Yeah, I don't need to hate on women, but I think that I remember dating my now husband, and we'd go and get a sandwich, and I would want just like one slice of turkey on there, and he'd be like, three times the turkey, please, and he'd get it, and that would make him happy, and I'd be like, oh, that's so much meat, and now I'm totally getting the triple meats, and it's just so crazy the gender differences on how we approach it too. But I just think that I think there was a limitation back then that men just thought that builds muscle, and then that's really the thought process behind that. I'm totally simplifying in a complete generation, so apologies. Um, but at the same time, we also were just our whole goal was to shrink into nothing, and it's just those two things don't work. And now with protein, you still need other macronutrients too. It's not like you don't want to just go and eat 100% protein. You need all of them.
And I mean, the easiest spot to like, you're talking about ordering a sandwich. Like the easiest place that you can do that is really like, oh, you're ordering the sandwich. You're not going to get the triple decker meat inside. It's like, okay, that's fine. But like in reality of that, like maybe cut off the top bread and then add more meat. Like, you know what
Fair,
I mean?
yeah,
Like
fair,
it just
yeah,
like, and I'm eating the whole thing, but it's honestly very interesting when you start to shift your mindset around prioritizing protein and prioritizing your macronutrients because you start to view the world and food just differently. Like
yeah.
I am someone who like if I get a breakfast sandwich, I add eggs to it. I also add avocado. I love my fats. But like
Uh-huh.
I am like going up and I know they're going to give me like one little egg. No, that's not going to meet my protein needs.
Yeah.
And that's just not, but it can be very deceiving just because like our mindset of like someone who prioritizes health and is fit and healthy and blah, blah, blah. They're not adding more eggs as a woman. We're not adding more eggs to our sandwich, but yes, we are.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need everyone to
Yeah.
understand that. Yes, we are.
Yes. Where and you have to advocate for yourself, especially when you're ordering out or eating at a place that has like a set meal plan or something. The it's also cheaper for companies to put out more carbs and fats than it is to have protein. And so you have to advocate and pay a little bit extra sometimes to get that extra serving of chicken on your Chipotle bowl or whatever, because it makes a huge difference. And feeling
100
full too. It also makes you feel full.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, this is adding into your savings account though. So like
Hmm.
this is going to pay dividends later in the day when like in 30
Totally.
minutes you're like, well, I'm hungry again.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
as you have your carbs and your fats, if you don't have that protein with it, you're going to have that sugar crash, and it helps stabilize your blood sugar levels. It's so much more valuable than just having the amounts that we think we're supposed to have.
exactly. So your cleanish philosophy approach is built around like an 80/20 mindset. Can you explain
Yeah.
what that means?
Yeah, so for a while, I tend to be an all or nothing kind of person, and so I was like all in. Once I discovered clean eating, I was just everything had to be perfectly clean, and there's always levels of clean, which can kind of drive you crazy. And so I was realizing that it's actually not 100% about being 100% anything, because that's so unsustainable, and if that's what's gonna lead someone into that cycling and yo-yo dieting and all of that, and it did that for me as well. So what I realize is you have to have a little bit of that ish in your life where, you go get a donut, you go get pizza with the family. You don't have to have like chicken breast. You could have chicken thighs and have the different types of meats and all of that, so that you have ways that you enjoy your life while at the same time you're living this clean life. So a cleanish just really fit when I came up with that concept. I was like, heck yeah. Like, and anyone I talk to, when they hear that, they're like, "Oh, I'm totally cleanish." I get that. It just seems like a good fit.
For sure. I think the general perception of someone like you who obviously has a major focus on nutrition, has been able to sustain a body composition that is desirable for a lot of people who are looking to lose some body fat. We kind of have this outside idea that like, oh, she must eat perfect. And this has happened to me in many, many ways. And I think for anyone who's been in the health and fitness industry for a while, like, been here for over a decade, and
Yep.
we've gone through our phases of like, at one point I was like clean eating only, like this is this is what I'm doing. And I like cut out cheese and like all kinds of crazy stuff. And then circled back because we go in our like 100% extremes and then we find out what works
Hmm.
sustainable long term for our lives. But I think the general perception for a lot of us as we're kind of navigating our way through that is if someone who has decided to have a focus on nutrition as some part of their lifestyle is that they must eat perfect. And then you see them having like cake and stuff and you're like, what's going on here? And it's really just a perception because my experience talking to people like you and talking to other people in the health and fitness industry who have been able to sustain this long term is they're not perfect. It's not this all or nothing lifestyle because you cannot sustain that long term.
Yeah.
There's always a break off where you say like, "Oh, I fell off the wagon, I better go get back on."
Yeah.
And what actually makes those long sustainable changes is imperfection.
Totally. Being imperfect is perfect. And I think that the more you can set yourself up for those opportunities to go imperfectly, I think the better you are. So while I by no means eat perfectly clean all the time, because I do enjoy a good cookie or a pizza or even just like a croissant or something like that, out. I set myself up to be able to do that very easily by strength training, getting daily steps, and the majority of the time, I eat very similar meals every time, and it's macro balanced, and I focus on paying attention to my food. So it's like that 80-20 approach where it's if you do the right stuff 80% of the time, you have that 20% flexibility.
We're going to take a quick break to get you a whole bunch of friends.
Do you like Friends?
We have about 80,000 amazing women friends, more than that, in one space that can't wait to cheer you on in your fitness journey.
Whether it's lifting you up, getting you motivated to get to the gym, complimenting your outfit, we have gathered 80,000 of the best women on the planet and put them all in one place for your friendship pleasure.
Honestly, I would just like pull out some of the amazing quotes from the group because, like, you would think groups like this, you're like, I don't know. And I'm telling you, once you enter in the door, the virtual door, because you can do this anywhere, that you will find the most supportive community you have ever known. And it's called Stronger Together by CVG. You can find us on a Facebook group. It's a closed group, women only, and you got to get in there.
Get in there. It's so inspiring. Join us today.
Do you have a nutrition non-negotiable for every day or every meal?
That's a really good question. I mean, no, I no longer give myself non-negotiables. So, there have been times in my life where that's the case, but I know, um, I don't like eating food that I don't enjoy. So I always want to make sure I eat my food. I enjoy the meals that I have, and I don't like going hungry. That's something that I try to fight that same person who was cutting all those calories so many years ago. I try to fight that person all the time, and so I try to eat to being full. And I just have those guidelines, but there's no like non-negotiable that way in terms of in a whole day, maybe I'd start getting a little bit more like, oh, I haven't had enough protein, or I need more fiber, or it feels like something's off. But I do allow myself more flexibility the more mature I get, and I think the more comfortable I get in my skin, if that makes sense. The more control I was
Absolutely.
causing before, it was because I was unsure of it.
Now, would you say because that's a great answer because, as you have come along on this journey, you can be a bit more intuitive to what your body needs. I think for a lot of women who are starting out on this journey and are kind of dabbling in this kind of like 80-20, or would you suggest any kind of non-negotiables for someone who is starting out?
That's a great question. Yes, I would start because I think the more rigid and structured in the beginning, the better, because we need to learn those habits and those rules. Because one who goes from zero to intuitive does not make a lot of progress, in my opinion. And so I'm not a huge fan of intuitive eating in that regard. But if you don't have all of the knowledge and the habits formed and all of that, So I think building your meals around protein, making sure that you spread protein throughout the day, and focusing on portion control and kind of thinking about, okay, well, half of my plate is vegetables, a quarter of it is lean protein, a quarter of it is a carb, and then also like a little bit of fat, and kind of just having those basic understandings is a really good spot to start. And then beyond that, like I felt macros and understanding the data behind food was so helpful for me, and breaking down my meal in terms of, okay, well, this is how many grams of carbs, fiber, and I actually didn't care too much about fiber in the beginning, but carbs, protein, and fat, and breaking it down to the macronutrients. That was super helpful. And I think that is something that is incredibly helpful, that we can quantize the stuff that we're doing so that you can actually it's just math. you know?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, 100%. Honestly, I think fiber is one of those that, like, the more you know, the more you kind of start side-eyeing fiber
yeah,
and, like, working it in and making sure that it's, like, such a pillar. And I'm not sure
yeah,
if this is just, like, as I've gotten older or, like, more knowledge around nutrition, but it's become like, "Oh, well, let's make sure we get some fiber in there." Sneak it in with, like, my my kids eat great, but sometimes I'm, like, putting in some beans, and I'm, like, sneaking it in because they're like, "I don't want any more broccoli."
yeah, totally. So my
Although
kids
they
actually
love
love,
it.
yeah, and my kids have loved like chia puddings and stuff, and it's like, yes, eat it up. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm like, there's so many different ways, but I kind of, like, started to, like, side eye, like, how to incorporate more protein and
yeah,
incorporate more fiber and, like, in different ways, especially for them to kind of, because like, I am a very, like, I'm a repetitive eater. Like,
same.
I can eat the same thing, like, so many times, like, broccoli and eggs, like, every day with some avocado is, like, a very easy thing for me to repeat.
hmm
Um but my partner sometimes is like, "Okay, so" and I'm
You're
like,
gonna have
"Spinach
something else.
it is."
Yeah.
It's like a slight variation.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm very similar that way, and the older I get, the more simple my meals are, and rather than being like so extravagant, and because I just like to keep things simple and easy. But I also, like I was saying, really enjoy my food, and so I have like big meals because I like a lot of bulk in my food. So I have a lot of vegetables in my meals, and my kids are always like, I don't understand how you eat so much. And I find that as like a personal win every time, because
Me
they see
too.
that I'm
Yeah.
actually eating a lot, and I enjoy it. And then I also am able to pay attention to the foods I'm eating. So I don't know. It's part of that. I think there's this mindset for all of us who are around the 35 to 55 kind of range, where we just have to relearn so many things with
Mhm.
nutrition, and I mean, self-love to a degree, that I think that it takes a lot of effort, and it comes down with every meal that we have, that we can change those behaviors.
I'm so glad you mentioned self-love too, because there is a certain level of, self-talk that goes into, like, I deserve to eat good food that makes me feel good, that, like, makes me have energy. Like, I deserve, like, full meals. And, like,
Yeah.
especially, like, for my moms out there, we're like, "You deserve to sit down for your meals too, if
Yeah.
you want to." Like, I'm not quite in that stage yet, but I deserve a hot meal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
it's
I
just
went
like,
from Oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I mean, I learned how to scarf down my food having my baby. So I was like, and then I have to relearn slowing down. Even now, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a lot with little ones.
Yeah, and you're like, "Okay, don't do that." Like, eat slower. Eat eat sitting
Yeah.
down. You deserve to have a hot meal. Like, it's a lot of, you deserve to have this is something, a pillar I just feel like women need to relearn and really repeat to yourself around food and around nutrition, is that it's not about withdrawing. You're not rewarded for the least that you can eat. You're not rewarded for just disappearing, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, you deserve to feel good in your body. You deserve to have a meal where you feel full and sustained and like you have energy throughout the day, not constantly obsessing and thinking about the least amount that you can eat because we're
Yeah.
constantly looking at our bodies. We have so many more important things to do. And I kind of wanted to, so your book focuses on protein as the anchor in every meal. How many grams of protein per servings should we be aiming for to support our minds and bodies throughout the day?
Um, it really depends on the person and their activity levels, but in general, thinking about it like zero point 0.7 to 1.0 times your body weight is like a really good, easy way. I don't get into kilograms or any of that kind of craziness, but and so many women are having probably like zero point 0.2 for their body weight,
It's
that it's
very
just
surprising.
it's very, yeah. And the more I talk to, I'm a nutrition and fitness coach, and the more I interview women as potential clients, and they tell me like what their daily eating is, they're focused so it's not like for lack of caring and attention that they've gained weight. It's that they're focused so much on reducing the things that they're eating, and it's like so little. And then there's also no protein on it, that it's just it's a recipe for backfiring. But yeah, so I think that having typically, if you can kind of try to aim around 30 grams per meal, it is gonna get you there, mostly, and then having like a 30-gram snack. But it's hard. I think a lot of women don't eat that way during the day, and then they're like, oh shoot, I need all my protein, and then you try to eat it at night, and it's just really hard. Protein is very filling, so it's hard to eat all at once, and so then it's like there's no way I can do this. So finding ways, having eggs and cottage cheese and maybe even a protein shake and egg whites in the morning, and finding a way that that works, and then at lunch making sure there's protein in your meal. Snack, it's same thing, and it is a constant thought process to do, but once you get used to it, it becomes second nature.
Yeah, once you get used to it, it becomes second nature. I want you guys to hear that. We don't expect
Yeah.
this like overnight, and it's so, so, so difficult to push it to the end of the day. And
Yeah.
this is where that kind of like restrictive eating and patterns of behavior really come into play, because if you go through your days just like pushing off the amount of calories that you can go for the day, just like looking to get the least amount, and then you get to the end and you haven't prioritized your macronutrients, you're not getting enough protein. And I honestly, guys, at the end of this episode, you're going to have some treats, but I want you to look at what 30 grams of protein actually is, because a lot of a lot of women, and same at the beginning of my journey, I didn't know what that looked like. And when you start kind of like adding up what that looks like in a day, I want you to see what that is. And maybe you like can't reach that right away because like you're like, I can't even eat that much in a day. Like that's totally like fair and possible, but I want you to know what that looks like and what those goals kind of look like from a protein perspective, because you'll be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just meat too. Like there's other things you can do to supplement. Like you were saying, like broccoli has protein in it. Having lentils or you know, quinoa or whatever. There's other ways to do it that isn't just 100% eating like a steak. I promise you, I don't eat steak all the time. So, and in terms of the cookbook, setting it up for yourself with meal plans and meal prep, and creating this easy to eat meal for your future self so that you don't have to think about all of it is really what my focus was in that cookbook, and kind of teaching you from beginner state to more advanced. Like, okay, so here's how we set ourselves up for success, because if you don't, and you do that restrictive eating during the day, that's the same type of situation where your body is going to try to compensate, and you're going to have all of those cravings for the foods that you shouldn't be having on a regular basis at night. And it's really hard to talk to your body out of those cravings when you're at night tired and hungry.
Yeah, the worst time to have those cravings, but they are 100% the strongest. And there's a biological reason behind that. That's not just you. And so many women go to like, it's my lack of willpower. Then I ended up binge eating. It's like this like deprivation of like that
Yeah,
constantly saying like in your mind, like that's your go-to, but it honestly is it's not you. And you brought
no,
up a great point there, just about like meal prepping, which is exactly where I wanted to go with this conversation. So you are a mom of four.
I am. Yes.
Wow. Pause on that for a second, because
Can we just take a moment?
can move past that one right away. That's amazing. Good for you. I don't even know what my house would look like with an additional 2 humans in it. Like, so great for you. And you homeschool. So you know what a busy, chaotic life looks like. And I want to give people, that kind of to just with the question I'm going to ask you, I want them to have that backdrop because so many of us who are in this stage of our lives are looking to take nutrition advice from a 20-year-old who has
Oh, yeah.
nothing to wake up to someone yelling at them in
Yeah.
the
No
morning,
kids.
or
Yeah.
there's no one in their bed when they wake up, and like
Yeah.
getting people ready and go put your shoes on 15 times. Like, that's a very different life
Yeah.
of what your nutrition can look like, the expectations, and what the meal prep looks like, or even just has the ability. So, do we need to just be spending like 5 hours in the kitchen on Sundays meal prepping? Like, what are we doing here?
Only if you want to. I mean, you can spend as much time as you want, but there are ways to get away with meal prep that are very minimal. And even just prepping like one part of a meal or one meal a day, you think about typically people don't want to meal prep everything. So I was like, okay, where is the time of day that you struggle the most? Is it lunchtime? Is it dinner? Plan that meal out so that you can set yourself up for success and then see how that goes, And so the more one can just identify the problems and then use meal prep as a solution rather than thinking meal prep is this overarching like heavy thing to bear. I think that's what the problem with a lot of people with meal prep is you see this like beautiful fridge with all these different meal plan containers and all that, or meal prep containers, and everything looks like it took so much effort and all that. But it doesn't have to be. It's as hard or as easy as you want to make it. And that's what I talk about in my book is I have different chapters based off of, okay, so you have no time. Here's what you do, right? Versus so now you have that understanding. How about we try a little bit more advanced type meals so that you can have like even like a casserole or something like you can break into it because meal prep is essentially leftovers for the whole week that you just set up for in at one time. So I think having 30 minutes to 3 hours, that whole gambit of time is you'll still get something done. And that'll be successful
Absolutely.
for you.
You know what I think is a wild thing? Like, we do picture this whole like meal prepping as being like, now you have to have your counter with like every portion of your macronutrients, and then you kind of like, those of us with a family, we're like, how does that look like for everyone? Do I have to do that
Yeah.
for everyone? Like,
Is
it's
this
like
for me or
mind
what? Yeah, totally.
like,
Yeah.
and that can feel like a big turnoff, and it can feel very overwhelming. So I did just want to say, like, that's not what it needs to look like, guys. I
Yeah.
often will meal prep, like for me, for example, like we always go for a walk at the end, like before dinner starts. So I always put like asparagus or something like in the oven, like before we like head out. And it's even like small things like that, like way too much. So that for the next couple of days, like for the next couple of lunches, like that's something that's covered. It's just like all done, it's made, it's whatever. And it's not anything crazy. Like I didn't have to it's like a pull it out and like lay it down in olive oil, salt, and pepper, and we're out of here. Like, it's
Yeah.
not anything wild. But in your book, you talk about your first meal prep fail. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I mean, I thought that I was going to have that perfect fridge, and have all those foods that were going to be set up. So I spent like I want to say 5 or 6 hours on a weekend prepping everything. I had all the meal plans. I measured everything out into portions, so I had everything literally into the down to the gram of what I needed in each meal prep container. And by day 2, I didn't want any of the foods and they all went bad
Yeah.
and nobody wanted to eat. I only picked foods that I wanted. And even then, I was kind of testing some recipes. I wasn't even sure if I liked it, and I didn't like some of them. And the kids didn't want any of them because I didn't get their buy-in on if they wanted any of it. And so it was hours of work and probably a couple, like $100 or so back, I don't know, maybe more, of food that just went to waste because I didn't think about the logistics behind it. And so that's why I try to teach people in my book and then at my clients that you got to pick foods that you like, and you got to set yourself up for success, and just don't do the all in thing that I that I did, because that can bite you. At some point you might be able to do more, but in the beginning it doesn't make sense to do that.
I feel that so much. I feel like, honestly, for anyone who's listening to this podcast and has never like meal prepped before, just like learn from our mistakes because I did that as well and had like this so many like perfectly like portioned out meals. And
Yep.
honestly, by the second day, I was like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to eat this.
Yeah.
and I didn't want to eat it anymore. And even if I tried it with like different sauces or something, I was like, I don't want this. And then I would just bypass it in the
Hmm.
fridge.
Yep.
And
And you find
then
something else.
yeah, and then you're like, "Okay, I spent all this time, I spent all this money, now it's just, like, old meat going bad that I'm just gonna kinda, like, push to the side because I don't wanna admit defeat on
Yeah.
this at
Yeah.
this time." But that takes into consideration because I think a lot of people, when we talk about meal prep, think about, like, "Oh, I'm going to have to eat the same meal for the entire week. I better be in on this meal. And then what if my kids don't like it?" It's just like it has this big spiral effect that and you're like, "Oh my god, are we going to end up just like getting pizza, which is worse than what I was trying to do here?"
Yeah.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy too.
Totally, totally. You set yourself up. Yeah, exactly. You try to be someone you're not, and then do something, and it's like, no, I'm this person. But the issue is, there's actually a third person that you can try to attain to be. It doesn't have to be the one who fails or the one who goes back to normal behavior. It could be the one who figures it out and gets shit done, right? And so, like, I think having that person in mind and connecting to that person, what is that person going to want to come home to have? Well, how is that person going to solve those problems? It's going to actually be helpful, and everybody's going to be so thankful that this is already made. And so one of those ways is just like you were saying, making more. So like buy 3 times the amount of the meal that you're going to cook, and then cook it, and then now you have leftovers. And that's just a simple way to do it, and if you can make sure that that meal is healthy-ish, has some protein and some carbs and fiber and all that, then you're golden.
Mhm, and it's not like you're like, "Oh, now I'm just, like, glaring like, looking down this for the rest of the week, like, all we're eating is, like, this type of meat and, like, our side is asparagus." Like, that's not it. You make, like, enough so that, like, you have another side for another meal that you can easily throw together, and then it has a different, like, mixture of what it's with, you know what I mean? It has, like, a
Totally.
different
Yeah.
protein as it's a totally different meal. My kids don't even
Yeah.
recognize it. They're like
Totally, yeah. I have a whole chapter in the cookbook where it's about, because I love bowls, right? So where it basically teaches you how to do a bulk meal prep of different pieces of stuff. So you have like grains, and you have the meats, and you have the veggies, and then you can make your own bowl based off of that and kind of combine everything, which is a lot of that looks very similar to how we have our meals now. Is I basically bulk meal prep things so that people can grab what they want of it. And now that my kids are older, and so they can make their own meals and put things together, which it gets easier. Trust me, it's so much easier when they get older and they start cooking for
the the
themselves.
the 4 and 14 month is not
No, they're not going to be cooking on the stove.
we're in the thick of it over over
Yeah,
here.
it's rough. Yeah, and I mean, and now my 8-year-old cooks herself like eggs, and so it's
I
like
love that.
it's pretty cool. But I think just the more one can try to connect to that person, because I think so often, like you were saying, like we just kind of go to that, like, what, I'm just gonna not want this, and I didn't, and you think that you're gonna fail, and obviously that self-fulfilling prophecy is really hard. So if we can start changing that and connecting with the person who thinks they're gonna succeed, and again, without that self-deprecation and then trying to, punish yourself for not being able to do it. I think it's there's so much more here than just weight loss and meal prep that we're talking about. It's about being a woman and trying to figure things out to make it, but not only be healthy for yourself, but for your kids, and teaching your family how to eat healthy, and keep everybody happy and healthy. I think that's probably the
Feeling
ultimate
good.
goal, and feel
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah. And so, and that the look of that just kind of changes as we age, I think.
Oh, for sure.
So, you already know we make the best workout gear, but one of our best products, our highest rated product on our website, is actually our collagen. If you have not heard about Glow Up by CVG, you are missing out. There is almost 700 5-star reviews on this product because it is such an amazing supplement. Actually, looking at it today, there are only 2 1-stars that were meant to be 5 stars. They love the product, they hit the wrong amount of stars. This is one of our most popular products for a reason. It dissolves like no other collagen. It's type 1 and 3. You're gonna have healthier skin, better joint mobility, Everything about this collagen makes it easy to put into your daily routine. So if you haven't tried Glow Up, get on cvg.com and make sure to add it to cart today. It's our best product.
Now, as you talked about, some guilt and a lot of I think when I hear some guilt around things, immediately goes to obviously like some sweet treats. Like I think a lot of people when it comes to some of the sweet things that they know are not part of like their major like macronutrients, like is this contributing to my overall like nutritional needs? But I want it and I'm a human.
Yeah,
So there is a mental and part of that as well.
totally.
And you have a section in your book that's called Feel Good Sweets.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know we have a recipe that we're going to give to the listeners today. But can you talk about that for a little bit? Because that has a place in our nutrition, like that has a place in our overall diet.
Yeah, I think there are so many times in my life nowadays when I'm eating things, especially earlier on when I was starting to really figure things out, where I thought I was cheating the system with being healthy. And I was like, I can't believe, like if I was making protein pancakes or something, I can't believe I get to eat pancakes and it's part of my meal and I'm happy and it doesn't make me feel guilty. And right. And so there were all these that level of like, I can't believe I'm getting away with this kind of thought process with being healthy because so much of it people think is going to be negative and hard and difficult and
Sad salads.
yeah, sad salads, exactly. And so what I wanted to do is make a chapter where it was a bunch of like kind of indulgent foods, like we have the recipe that you're going to talk about, but that we also have um like amazing little like everything has chocolate and coconut oil in it and sometimes in the freezer, but like if you can make like kind of a yogurt and strawberry and chocolate and just kind of the really tasty little yogurt bites and they're so simple to make or just having having the ability to just grab something out of the freezer where you know, okay, well this actually has protein in it. So I know that even though I enjoy it and it tastes sweet, I'm not gonna as I finish it, I'm not going to get this sugar crash because I have protein in there, which is going to help me digest it better and it's going to take longer to digest. And I won't be just starving in like 5 minutes, you know? So I think that having something like that where you feel kind of like you're cheating that way, but at the same time aligns with your goals, is like the biggest win.
I love that. And I love that you said, like, having protein in here, which assists with digestion and it isn't going to give you that crash. And I know we're looking for that for ourselves, but we're also looking to kind of provide that to some of our like growing brains in our house too. Where we're like,
Yeah.
we don't want you to crash. Like, it's obviously their, bodies are much more susceptible. And it's so hard to kind of like figure out what that balance is between like, a bunch of ice cream or like could we give you something that is going to meet some other nutritional needs and could it like have something that's a grab and go for us that is more of a sweet indulgent treat and but also like makes you like feel good. You don't feel like
Yeah.
like heavy and
Yeah, it
like
doesn't
for
feel
me I
good to
get
eat those
headaches.
foods. Yeah, the other types of
Yeah.
foods. Yeah, when you're done with it, you're like, oh man, yeah, like the headaches and just digestion issues, and not only that, but the guilt that you feel with all of that. You know, there's a time and a place to go enjoy a bowl of ice cream. Like I do that, and I think that feeling those things afterwards still happens even with that, where I want to go and have a bowl of ice cream. If you can have a protein ice cream instead that tastes 90% as good as a regular bowl of ice cream, but you get the protein, so I feel like that's just a huge win.
Awesome. So we have the recipe for birthday cake protein bites. I haven't made this yet. I got the recipe just before, like a day before we recorded, but I
Yeah.
also have a couple birthdays coming up in my house. So I'm very excited to try this. And this is going to be available to all of our listeners, correct?
Cool. Yes, yeah, for sure. And
Awesome.
these are so good. Like we made these my kids were my taste testers for the cookbook.
Oh,
And
those
so
are
we
great
made these.
tea
Yeah,
testers.
yeah, they loved
They're
it.
not gonna lie to you.
Yeah. No, they
You
definitely
ask your
sometimes
friends, they're like, "This is good," and you're like, "Is it though? Like, tell
yeah.
me."
Yeah, they
You ask kids, they're
definitely
like, "This is awesome," or "This sucks."
yeah, and you can tell with what goes faster in the fridge and what's getting taken and what ones they like want nothing to do with. So that was a good barometer for me. And we tried these. I just love like I don't know if it's like the 90s kid in me or whatever. I just love birthday cake flavored things. And I love that concept, but it's so often highly, highly processed. And so
Yeah.
it feels so chemical and plastic. So I wanted to have something in the cookbook that kind of was an homage to that kind of taste and feel. So I made these and we couldn't stop eating them. They were so delicious. But I mean,
And
I should
did you
say
just
I had my amounts and then the kids couldn't stop eating them.
and then you can now, like, just a peek behind the scenes with your cookbook. Like, how'd you come up with this? Like, were you just like, okay, these things are gonna taste good together, and you just have that special talent, and like, how'd you come up with this?
This specific recipe
Yeah,
or I I come up with the concept first and I try to think on, okay, what if I knew I wanted to have some sort of energy ball or protein ball in there because those are like I think people expect that kind of a snack and it's an easy like I don't have to convince people to go have a protein ball. Right? They know that
yeah,
that's something that you're going to want. And so, but I wanted to come up with a fun flavor. And so I just from there, I do research and I see what other people have done and how other people have put them together. And then I kind of sit on that and then put it together myself. And I have my own recipes that I've created over the years where I kind of adjust and build off of in that way. So, and then when I make it, I usually do like one or two iterations of a recipe, and so I test it all out and see what I like or don't like, and then I do a final one after that. And then that one is the one that I photograph.
yeah.
This,
I love to just get a peek behind the scenes of like how the creation happens with so many different people because like I'm not a baker for sure.
yeah.
But so I'm always like, how do you come up with this stuff, guys? This is great. Like I wouldn't have looked in my cabinet and been like, oh, I'm gonna put these things together. But that's why, some people write songs and get recipes together
Yeah.
because it's a special talent for sure.
Yeah, and with this one, I had to be with all of the recipes in this cookbook, I had to be very mindful of the macros too, which was a little bit extra structure for me for it. And I normally do it that way, but with this, I absolutely wanted to make sure they were reasonably or low in fat. And then they also had the high protein component. And so, you know, the sweet treats chapter was particularly difficult because I wanted to make sure that it tasted good too. And so sometimes I'm using collagen instead of protein to make sure that it's kind of the smoother texture and all of that. But it was a lot of trial and error actually with the sweet treat chapter. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun research.
I love that. I can't wait to try this. And thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, with helping people figure out nutrition and to have a sustainable lifestyle and share your delicious recipes because, eating for fueling and feeling good can be delicious as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for all of your work that you're doing with that. And where can my listeners hear more from you? Where can they check out your stuff?
Yeah, cleanish.com. You can learn more about the cookbook, which comes out on May 19th. And then also I'm at Lacey Baier on Instagram and on YouTube. So those are where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited for your cookbook to come out to the masses. I'm definitely going to get it and make sure to incorporate some of those recipes for my family,
Yes,
who would
yes, for sure.
love a
And you can
little
pre-order
switch
it
up.
now if you want. So
Excellent. We're going to provide those links below. But Lacey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast
thank
today.
you for having me. It's so nice to go through all the nutrition stuff with someone else who clearly knows her stuff.
Thank you.